So last week I issued you guys a challenge, and now I'm issuing myself a challenge. Hi there, my name is Kevin, and here at my channel we learn how to make the web and how to make it look good while we're at it with weekly tips, tricks, and tutorials. Now I'm changing things up just a little bit for now and challenging myself to try and push myself a little bit, where I'm going to design something and then I'm going to take that design and I'm going to code it up. And it'll be back-to-back videos. So this week it's my design, and next week it will be my coding of the site. So in this designing code challenge, it's heavily influenced by Mackenzie Child, and he did like a back-to-back, like I think it was 6 designs. So he'd design a site and then he'd code it up, and then design a site and code it up. So he did 6 different sites in 12 weeks. I'm not going to be going that crazy, but I'm going to make it a regular occurrence on my channel instead. So maybe once a month or once every 2 months I'm going to do this type of thing. So the idea is to design something cool, something fun, and then go ahead and code it up the following week. Now, because the design has to be done in one video and the code has to be done in one video, I'm going to be a little bit limited on the design itself. I have to hold myself back a bit. I can't make this super long page just because I'm not going to be able to do videos that are condensed enough to share everything I'm doing for those. So the designs are going to be a little bit limited, but I don't want it to be limited in the sense of what I'm doing in them. So what I mean by that is I want to make things that are still interesting. So they won't be these massive, huge things I'm doing, but I want to still push myself in what I'm designing, and especially in how I'm going to be coding it up. So in each one, I'm going to try at least one thing while I'm designing it. I don't really know how I'm coding it yet. And then we'll figure that out when we get to that part of it, because I want to push myself with this. I want it to be something that's fun and challenging for myself, where I'm learning new stuff, and hopefully you are too. The designs will all be done in Adobe XD. If you don't have Adobe XD, or if you've never used Adobe XD, it is free now from Adobe as long as you have a free Adobe account, so that's really cool. I know a lot of people don't really like Adobe, the whole pricing model. I get it. It's expensive, but at least XD is free now. They're assuming they're doing it to try and get you into their ecosystem, but anyway, the software is free if you want to use it, or if you have something else, by all means, use whatever you like to design. I might be jumping into Photoshop or Illustrator from time to time to tweak an image or make an icon or something, but the focus really will be on using Adobe XD. And when I start coding things, I'll talk more about the coding in the next video, but it'll be all done with VS Code and sort of my usual workflow. For this week's challenge, I'm going to be doing a brewery website. So I'm a big fan of craft beer and I enjoy beer. So I thought it would be fun to do like a make-believe breweries website. So the first thing I'm going to be looking at is the thought process behind my design, the things I'm thinking about while I'm designing it, and we'll just jump right into the design. And then, as I said, in the next video, we'll be looking at how we can actually code that design up. So let's get to work.
All right, so we're about to start the design, but before we get into actually designing the site, I want to give you a bit of an idea of my thought process and some of the ideas that I was putting into this before getting into the design itself. Now, I did it kind of quickly just because I'm putting a time limit on myself for this project, but normally this could really get drawn out and be a lot bigger. So first I just started off writing down a bit of a plan, so who the audience is going to so just who is the audience, getting some inspiration. The inspiration will help lead to some images and colors and fonts and all of that, which was sort of what my design is, and then eventually we can figure out what the content will actually be as well. If I was doing something for a client, I would hopefully have this from the very, very beginning. Maybe I could do these 2 steps first, but the content is usually key. But in this case, I don't have a real site, so I get the joy of using lorem ipsum. If you're doing client work, don't work with lorem ipsum, please. It's much easier to have content that helps dictate your design choices a little bit. So the who and the why, well, we're going to be doing a craft beer brewery website. So in general, craft beer people, 18 plus, obviously, and for craft beer lovers. So why are we even building a website? What's the purpose of this website? This is really, really important. So this is who's going to be visiting it, but why are they going to be visiting it? What purpose do these people have to come to the website? So they want info on the brewery itself. Now, why do they want info? Maybe they want to see when the pub or restaurant is open. Can they buy merch? Are there brewery tours? Checking out new beers. I didn't put that there, but they might be checking out If they're a returning customer, maybe they're checking hours at the restaurant, or if they're if they're a new customer, maybe they want to see what type of beers they have on tap or that they make, that they sell, and all of that stuff. Once I decided all that, I wanted to look for inspiration, and I usually use Pinterest. Now, my Pinterest boards are usually much bigger than this one. You can see they really want me to promote my pins. But they're not even my own things. I don't know why I'd promote them, but you'll notice a couple of things. I just sort of did a few here that got me started. I might get a lot more than this. The first things I was looking at were these ones, which was just pictures of breweries. So here it's a brewery and the restaurant together. This is just a little nano brewery by the looks of it. And some of these have the restaurant here style. This here too, it's kind of a cool tap room. And then I started looking for websites as well, and I started with beer websites. There wasn't a lot to choose from, to be honest, depending on what you're looking for. So I started with the beer ones. I found a few that I sort of liked, but there's not a lot of beer-related stuff on Pinterest, so I just started looking for general concept and ideas that I liked, and these were two that I sort of came across. This one, it's a retirement home, I think, but I really like the sort of overall design. I like this, like the blocks that are overlapping. With this, I think I'm going to steal parts of this one for sure. I sort of like just the idea of that. This too, I just the big blocks and that type of thing. Sort of inspired me a little bit. Now, if you know my designs and you've been following me, I tend to do this a lot with these overlapping things because I feel it helps flow more. And one of the things I want to do with this is I want to sort of get sections flowing from one into the next one. So there's parts of this one that I like for that. I came up with a couple of color schemes. After that, I was using coolers.co. I sort of like this with the big, vibrant, bright colors, and this is what I was originally going to start with. But now that I've thought about it a little bit more, I sort of lean more towards something like this with one punch color, some neutrals, the browns, some grays, thinking more of like, say, this picture or this picture. You have the punch green and then all these browns and grays and stuff like that. I sort of like that color scheme that comes from that. So I'm leaning more towards this, and I've actually saved like an Adobe library with roughly these colors, so we can start working on that. And for the design ideas, no blocked off sections. Things should flow one section to another, like I said. I definitely want a beer list, maybe a featured section to promote a new release or something like that. I don't know if we'll bother with that or not. Just for time reasons mostly. And definitely a heading font, maybe that could be a bit more interesting. I'm going to be using Typekit. Here I put Typekit a possibility. I'm going to use it. I've always been using Google Fonts. I'm going to go grab, I've already got the fonts I want to be using actually. But we'll be looking when I do the coding on how to actually use Typekit, because I think that could be interesting. And they've changed it a little bit. They still have the old way of doing it, but you can do it with CSS now as well instead of with JS, which is cool. And for the content, I just came up with sections: hero, the beer, a mission statement type of thing, information on the brewery itself, and information on their tap room. And the other thing here is I've already got some images. So if we come and look, I don't have a lot. I thought this would be a lot easier to find stuff in here than it was. But it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to find images, sadly. But I got some interesting ones, a bit of a mix of people drinking beer, and I really like this one. I think that would go well. But yeah, just a few images. All of these are free images that I got either from Pexels or on Splash. I used both of them because I needed more pictures. So if ever you're looking for images, those are two amazing resources. So I'd really recommend checking them out. Now with all that out of the way, let's go and get started. Okay, so normally I would just click this, hit web, and be good to go. But because I'm recording and when I record, my screen size is a little bit limited, this would just be massive and there'd be lots of side scrolling. So I think I'm going to start with 1400 by like 6000. The height I can adjust later on. I'm just going to make it really big for now. And I'm just choosing this because I think it's going to work well with my current screen settings. Let's just get rid of that and hit Command 1 and perfection. Good. And 1400 is wide enough, so it should be fine. Great. So let's just come in here and we'll call this brewery homepage desktop. and I can start working. The first thing I'm going to do here is this only shows up when you click on the name up here and you've selected your whole artboard. You can come to your grid right here and you can turn on a layout. You can either do a square grid like this, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to do a layout grid. And you can choose how many columns you want, what size of your gutters, the column width, and your, from the sides here, the margins, I guess, on the left and the right. I'm just trying to think. I think I'm going to go with like 150 for these-ish. That'd be like 1100 pixels total width. I'll start, whoops, 2000 is a bit big, 200. So it's 1000 pixels, it'd be 200 plus 1000 plus 200, it's 1400. I'm only gonna go with 6, I think, for now, because I don't think I'll need more than that. And my gutter will be 32 for a nice little 2M gutter on that. And I think we should be good to go. I'm choosing 2M just to make a nice big gutter. I'm just trying to think for this design in general. I won't have anything that's like too narrow. I could probably even set this to 3 columns, but anyway, we'll start with this and we'll see where it goes. Just realized I'm not really filling up the screen properly here. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so if ever you want to turn the grid thing here on or off, you can obviously click on this, but once you have content, you can also push Command Shift apostrophe or quotation mark, the one next to your return key, and it will turn that on and off. And now we can get started. So I'll take my type tool, or actually I'm going to take a big image thing here, and I'm just going to bring out a nice big box because I want to throw an image in here. And let's go get my images. And I think I'm going to start with this one just because it's nice and dark and it's going to sort of set a tone, but it's not going to be so big I can't use it. So just to bring an image into XD, you can literally just do what I did there and copy it in. And it's going to fill the space of the box that I drew. And it's sort of like a background size cover. If I adjust my image, it adjusts what I'm working on there. So it's perfect. And on here, I'm going to push T from my type tool. And I'm going to write the brewery. And let's make that much bigger and change the color. So one thing that's annoying that they haven't really done well, OpenCC libraries, I wish this was like a little panel. Brewery design and code. There we go. So you can see I brought in a whole bunch of colors there to play around with that I might be interested in using. So I'll just leave this here while I'm working, I guess, and we'll just stick white on that. Got to spell things right. Whoops. The brewery. And the font that I'm going to probably be using is Program OT. So Program OT right there. I think it's not rustic like I was thinking of originally, but it sort of has these nice rounded corners. It's very bubbly-ish and friendly, approachable type of font. So I thought that would be fun. I'm just going to click, whoops, don't want to center it there. I want to center it this way. I think I'm going to add, let's just bring that up and shrink this down. We'll do like a welcome to, maybe that one, whoops, could be in italic. Nah, we'll just leave it like that. What if it's all caps, actually? I wish there was an all cap button in XD. Welcome to. I'm going to add a little bit of letter spacing here. A bit more, 25 maybe. Space that out a little bit and then come and click on my italics. Welcome to the brewery. Okay, I'm just going to sort of, usually I'm focused, I usually have some sketches and stuff from my layout too, but see, this is annoying that this is, I wish this could dock inside of here. I'm going to have it off screen just because it's going to fall behind anyway. The brewery, no, let's go with that. And you know what? Even for this one, let's grab another box. I want to make it really easy to see here. So I'm going to make this nice and big. I'm going to turn off the border on it, and let's change the fill color here to like a brownish, dark brown. There's two different things you can do. You can do a background blur, which is kind of cool in XD. So I'm just going to do Control and the square brackets to move this back. There we go. So I can do a background blur, which I sort of like. Let's see how that's going to look. Brightness can be down. You can play with the opacity too, so you can get like how much of the background picture is showing through. I don't know if I want that though, or if I just want to lower the opacity of this brown layer. Something like that, so it's easier to see. Not super in love with this. It's going to be revisited. So for this, I'm just going to go... Let's just shrink this down, the brewery, and center it on the screen. And since I did this sort of italic thing, I'm going to reuse that, but obviously come in with like a lighter color. Maybe I'll do a lighter... Even this could be shrunk down now, and this would be like our beer. So our beer, some of what we, I wanted this to be all caps though. Some of what we have on offer. Grab both of those, just hit center. Oops, let's do them separately so they're centered on the whole screen. There we go. The beer, some of what we have on offer, and let's just get some lorem ipsum here. So I have this on beer lorem ipsum Google search I did. So I just have some lorem ipsum off screen. For this, I'm actually going to draw a text box and paste this in here, except I don't want it to be white, and I'm going to use a different font in this case called Edita, which I think will look nice. Edita book. We want to be able to see it. Let's change the color. Cool. So this one, it's a serif font, which doesn't always look the most modern, but I like the combination of these two fonts together. Now, one thing I really want to do on this is lower this down. 16 is always the default, so you can go to 16 to start with. I think in general, a 16 is small, especially for desktop. So usually my default will then be 18. So let's check that out. It's not bad. I'm zoomed at 100% though, especially because I'm using larger fonts here. I want this to be bigger. Now, if you're not someone who's into design, it can be really good to use a modular scale. Even if you're into design, using a modular scale can be really good. In this case, I'm just going to sort of wing it though. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I do. If I was working on a larger project or something that had lots of text, like a blog or something like that, where they'd have lots of text and I want to make it as easy to read as possible, I'd most probably definitely be using some sort of modular scale for my text. I like that. I'm just going to increase the line height a bit here, 2130. This is just something that comes with a bit of, well, again, if you have a modular scale, you might have something that works as well. I'm also trying to limit the line height, and actually I should be checking this out. I have a grid. I should be using it. There we go. That makes sense then. Good. Yeah, we'll just... This is the advantage of lorem ipsum. We can do that. Perfect. So I just want like a little, this is sort of like, okay, we're in the beer section, a little brief description, and then we're going to come in with our images. So this is far from ideal. I'd love to have a picture on a white background, but I couldn't find a picture of beer on a white background that was free to use. Now I'm sure there's plenty, and if you Google search beer on white background, you will find. But for this, I'm opening up Photoshop. I got this picture, and we have a nice looking beer right here. Not really cloudy enough to be a New England IPA, but it looks some sort of IPA probably. So here we are in Photoshop to select this. Now, an image like this, a lot of people would be tempted whenever they're making a selection, if they want to, when they're in Photoshop, to come and just use like a selection tool. So they'd grab the quick mask tool and try and select it. The problem with this is, you know, you always get these things like that, and then you're coming in, and even if you're using the selected mask to try and fix things up, like it's really hard to get a nice perfect selection. You get these little bits. It's either too much, too little. On some images, if you have hair, things that are like weird selections, ideal. Go for it. Do quick mask it or quick select it. Go to your selected mask, fix up your selection. There's soft edges, things like that. It's going to work a treat. But if ever you're doing selections and you need just nice, clean, crisp edges, the pen tool is your best friend. Now this wouldn't work for this because this glass is out of focus. So because the edges are soft on this, it would look really weird with a nice hard selection. This one too, it's only slightly out of focus, but this one's nice and pretty much perfect. So yeah, grab your pen tool, make sure you're on path and not shape here. Zoom in. Don't be scared of having a nice close selection, and just start making a selection. If you're not used to the pen tool, it might take you a while and you're going to be cursing going, I can do faster selections in another way. But the pen tool, to get a nice crisp selection with all of the tools we have today, can still often be the fastest and the best once you're good with the pen tool. If you think it's like once in a blue moon you'll be doing a selection, maybe it's not worth learning really how to use it. This is not a video on how to use the pen tool, so I'm going to fast forward while I do this because as good as it is, it's still a bit of a process. Now, one tip I'm going to give you if you are using the pen tool, the less selections you have, probably the better. And the second one is, don't be scared if it's not perfect, because you can always come and adjust your handles afterwards just to fix things up a little bit and get your curves right on. And the third is, if you're going to have to be careful, like if you'd rather be here or here, you'd rather be over on this side, because this way you're not going to get some weird white line. You'll just be cutting a little bit extra off. Whereas if you're on this side, then you get this sort of the background showing through and it's going to look like crap. So always err on the side of too much and then not enough. Yeah, and don't be scared. If you make a mistake, don't keep hitting undo, 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 and always trying to fix it and get it perfect. Because just keep going, come back, adjust your points a little bit afterwards. So with that, I can come on my path here. I can just click this little thing. It makes a selection. Now, as long as I'm on a selection tool, select and mask. My view, I'm going to put it on white because my final one will be on white. I'm going to pump that all the way up to 100, and I'm going to look at what that looks like to see if it looks half decent. It's not 100% perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. My edges are nice and smooth, and I think it looks pretty good. So I'm just going to do a new layer with my layer mask. I'm going to click OK on that, and I'm going to crop this down because I don't need my image to be so gigantic, and I'm going to save that to bring it in. Now, one of the most annoying things for me in XD is that you can't, I'm going to save a PSD here, but I'm also going to save it as a JPEG, I guess, because I'm just going to keep a white background on it. Let's save it as a PNG, I guess. PNG. It's going to be a pretty big file, probably. Just because I don't think you can bring PSD files into XD here. Great, so let's make my little square, drag this into there. And this is a bit big. There we go. Center it on the screen. Make sure everything is centered. Cool, good. Oh, I have a border on this. I'm just going to turn off the fill and the border. Oh, not the fill, just the border. Repeat grid, and then I can just get them like that. That could work too. The nice thing with the repeat grid is I believe I can then adjust the spacing so much easier. Okay, good. I think I'm going to do it like this. Let's turn my grid back on for a second. So I'm going to click to select. And if you have a whole bunch of images, you can drop them all in your grid too. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Undo. Let's just space this out until they sort of get to the limits. I sort of like that better just because it's giving me a bit more space. So I'm really aiming for like a decent amount of space up here. I might even move this down a little bit more. So this is sort of one block of information. So this is all related together, but I really want like bang, bang, bang. This is a set of hierarchy, and then I have this part over here, which is the next little bit of information. Now, I don't want these to be super visible, so I'm wondering if I say I did. So I want that, but on the fill here, if you go to the color, it's really hidden away if you want a gradient. I want a linear gradient. That's fine, except I want this to be 0. I want it to be white. And I want it to run this way. And even maybe the opacity on this one could be higher. And then I can take this Option or Alt drag, flip it over, and put it on that side. Something like that. Maybe that's a little too much. Lower the opacity on the overall thing. I really want to say like, okay, we're looking at this beer, but there are other existing beers. And this I think is going to be an interesting thing to code, because I want to be able to click and cycle through here. So I'm going to need some arrow icons as well here to be able to cycle through the different beers. So that is all good. I want to have a short description of my beer. Let's just do something like, I don't know, our take on a classic style. Something like that would be fine for that. I want to grab, I think this, we could do IPA. I don't have a cool witty name. If you have a suggestion for what we could call the beer, if there's any good ones, I'll change it when we get to the coding part. So yeah, leave a suggestion if you have a cool IPA name or something like that that you'd want to give it. I'm changing the color here. I'm sticking with the color scheme we have. The reason I'm changing the color instead of just going again with this is really like my title. It's another block of information, so I feel like I can style it a little bit differently. IPA, and I guess we can give it like its percentage or something. People like knowing all this stuff, 6.2%. And just to make it a bit more interesting, because right now if I just leave it at 6.2, I'll make it a little bit smaller, make it a little bit lighter. I think that looks okay, but just I think this is just going to make it look better. Alcohol. Now this is silly because you'd know it's that it's dealing with the alcohol. So maybe a little bit unnecessary, but I think it can make it a bit more interesting looking. Now I'm making it a square right now. This should probably be a bit bigger. I'm just trying to go for like a bit of an interesting look here right now. And, you know, just adding the alcohol underneath it there, I find gives it a little bonus something. So, it, you know, instead of just 6.2 like that, it gives it a bit more weight and a little bit more something to this part of the design. We move all that down a little bit. We know we're looking at the IPA. Should this just... group that, center it, center. Okay, we're centered. I feel like everything's off center a little bit, and I was right. There we go. So you know what? I can probably make these little icons here. I'm going to take the pen tool here, and I'm just going to zoom in quite a bit. And I'm just going to click. I'm going to hold shift down. I'm going to hold shift down. And there we go. We got the point there. Cool. So I get that type of shape. And then what I want to do, let's round the corners on that and also round the edges on that, and size. Let me get a bit bigger. I'm going to switch the color over to one of my colors instead of just gray, except that's doing the fill. Let's just... I'm going to go a little bit lighter, I think. We'll go with this one. And we'll copy that and drop that in on the border there. Perfect. How's that going to look? It's a little bit too big and probably too prominent, actually. Let's shrink that down and just... Oh, actually. Yeah, I think that's a bit too much, maybe. I'm going to keep this as like an SVG icon or something like that eventually. And I'm going to be using grid, I'm pretty sure, for this, so I don't mind going outside of my grid that I have, my columns that I've created here. I don't, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. This here, I don't mind going outside of that. I want this to be my main content area. But if I go outside of that, it's really not the end of the world. I would, in general, want to keep most things inside that space. But if some things break out, I don't think it'd cause any major issues. Depending on how I do it. Again, I'm not worrying about the responsiveness of it, which really does help. Something with this is sort of bugging me, but actually I think I like that over one line more, so maybe, I could even have that as a big line like that, depending. Yeah, I think I like that more. Part of the reason I didn't like it before, if I can ever get there, let's go back. I have a decent amount of line spacing going on right now, and the issue with this is when it's only on the 2 lines like that, there's nothing wrong with it necessarily, and it's sort of keeping it framed in a frame like this, but there's just something about it. I don't know. It wasn't my cup of tea. I think that it's still well balanced. I think it still looks pretty nice. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Cool. Good. And then ideally when I hit next, the whole thing would move over and this part here would come into focus. And that's going to be the hard part. I think I know how I'm going to do my little carousel thingy here. It's getting this to only appear on the active one. I might have to use a little bit of JS to get that to work. I'm not too sure yet. We'll see what happens when I get to coding that. So the next thing I want to do is the... mission. So I'm going to take all this, and actually I haven't been organizing my layers or anything, but when in XD I tend not to. So I'm just going to grab all of this because I definitely want this to be the next part. And we'll call it the mission, not the mission, our mission, small m. I like that better. More friendly, approachable. I know it's a title. We have title case and all of that. Why we do what we do. Let's say. And in this case, this could probably be a little bit longer. So I'm just going to literally copy and paste to double her up. Actually, this would probably look good with a picture though. Actually, what if I made that shorter? Here, I'm going to bring an image in, but I'm also going to bring in a button. I think would look good. No border on there. Thank you. And the fill color, let's say we're going to go with the green color because I want people to click on this to read more. It's the first time I use that green though. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with that, but for now, can I put center aligned? Good. Read more. That will be in my program. This color can be white. Button's probably a little bit too big. And because I'm using like the font is very round, even it's lots of round shapes and all, I think it would work best on this just to give it a little bit of a rounded corner on that. Center and center, read more. Cool, read more. I do think an image would look good here though, but I don't really want another big background image. We'll see. I'm just going to bring in sort of something. Let's go check out those images that I had. And this one would be perfect. With the mission, you get the nice picture of the guy's face. It makes it a bit more like human and everything like that. It fits in with everything else. So that's definitely going to go right there. But what we're going to do, how can I do this with, yeah, how can I make this work? I think actually, what if I drag you on this side here and make it a little bit smaller? Say we did 3. Okay, we'll try 3. And what I'm actually going to do is come in and make another box. I want it to overlap though. Maybe do like 3 and 4. It's going to go over his face, which I don't really want. Command Shift left square bracket to push it all the way in the back. Let's just give this a fill color in the moment so we can see it. Turn off my border. Find my colors here. Let's just go with a dark color. Yeah. Actually, I'll leave this here for, except if I click here, it just goes back. It's really annoying. Let's use white for those. Left align. We're going to bring you all the way over. Let's turn off this grid for a second. Our mission, why we do what we do. Can I go with one of my colors? Perfect. And this too actually should be. What if I went with a light brown instead? Nope. And if that's all left aligned, this should be left aligned. Don't mix alignment. When you're doing different things, the biggest mistake that I see designers in general doing is mixing alignment. Whoops. On things. So you'll have like everybody center aligns titles. So they take their 2 titles, they do a little like center on it, they do that here, and then they do a left align on the regular text, and it just looks weird. Don't mix alignment. If you have left align, stick with left align. If center, stick with center for that little sort of block of stuff. It's not exactly what I envisioned, but it doesn't look bad. I find it's missing a detail. I'm just going to try. What if I did something like that? Turn off the fill and white border. Maybe not a pure white border. Maybe if my border was like this color. And I don't know, 3 pixels? That could work. One thing that's also really important is that you leave enough padding on stuff. Don't like that that's on top. Let's bring him right up, and maybe something like that. Yeah, make sure that you leave enough padding on things. People are like, oh, 5 pixels of padding, 10. No, you should put more padding. Okay, they put 10 pixels. Like, leave white space. Don't be scared of white space. It helps, you know, here, there's a lot of white space. Why? Because this is coming into a new section of content. Don't be scared of making lots and lots of space on stuff. I don't really like the color, the background color on this being green. I'm just going to stretch this out a little bit. The read more now can be a different color. There we go. Yeah, I like that. And I think I'm going to give this a really subtle shadow, which the default one actually in maybe a blur 6, do a blur of 8. Yeah, just a, what's the opacity on this? 1632. Yeah, I like that a little more. Really, really subtle shadow. You don't need a big, obvious jump in your face shadow, as you know if you've been watching some of my other stuff. This button doesn't stand out too much, but I don't want this to be the main call to action either at this point. They've got to here, they've read about the beer, okay, here's the mission. If they're interested in the mission, they're going to see that button, they're going to click on that. Yeah, I think that's good. This is sort of floating on top. Maybe we could do something. Yeah, that's good. And I want this to really flow. I don't want it to feel like it's big blocked off sections. So here, we're keeping the white space. We're not putting like a different background on it. This is really bugging me. I'm going to come back up to this actually. I think I'm going to just Command G to group the background image with that background thing. I'm going to shrink you way down. What if... I know I don't have a navigation on this. We'll see about that after. What if I had a better name? Local brewery. I know it's not the best name in the world. I'm just trying to do like 40, 36. I was trying to do like a little a little logo here. Don't really like what it looks like right now, but I don't like the top thing being what it is. But anyway, I'm going to leave that there for now. And I think what I'm going to do is copy this, paste it. Something like that could be interesting, actually. Maybe? Let's see. You don't see this on websites too much these days, so I'm wondering. Let's see. It's almost like it's a different... I'm missing a title or something, maybe? But I sort of like the idea that right away, like you have your logo or whatever, and then it's just like, here's like some, maybe it's a bit too long, but this like really important piece of text or something like that, that just comes in, and you almost feel like you should read this, right? Like you have it like this nice big thing. Usually you're used to something else there. So here, instead of that, you're getting this piece of text, and it's like, oh, what is it? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm going to read it because it's here. I have all this white space around it. So it's really, my eye isn't, it's not, I'm focusing on this. Maybe I can come down and start reading about the beer and some other stuff. But like, usually you get your call to action, your other stuff here. By changing that and not giving, it's still the same layout that people are used to, in the fact, you have your logo, and I'll probably have a navigation up here at the top, and then they're running into the next section. It has a big image. That's what you're used to. You're used to a nice big image, but you're used to a call to action. You're used to a big piece of text. You're used to something that's telling you to do something. And here it's just like, well, our brewery's awesome, blah, 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 or something like that. Or, a little mission statement, maybe instead of having the mission here, or I don't know, something about their brewery here that really could speak to something. Doesn't really feel like a homepage, maybe. Worth revisiting again. I didn't like what I had before. Again, I can just pop this on top like that, put this in white. Maybe that feels more like a homepage now. The little line underneath, because that always looks kind of good. That line, we could drop the opacity on it maybe. We'll just do 50. Center. Just making sure everything's centered. And again, we want to make sure we have enough white space, except if I'm doing this, I can go all the way up to here now. And maybe we'll do something like that. And then I still have room for a navigation at the top. Yeah, I think I'll do that. It's not breaking too far off. No call to action necessarily, but same idea. You get like this nice big introduction. You're going to hopefully read this paragraph of text. It's nice and clear, and then you can find out about the beer. And then if you're still interested and you're still scrolling, okay, let's find out more about this brewery. What would happen if I change this to brown? Just because I have all those browns going on up top. I'd have to change these two then. I almost feel like it's not dark enough. It's not terrible, but I like the blue better. All right, so that's the mission done. I think that looks pretty good. I was going to do the mission, then the brewery, and then the tap room. And the brewery thing was for the brewery tours, or maybe it could be like, brewery tours and merch or something like that. I'm almost wondering if instead it should be that for like the tap room and then the next part. And I'm also thinking, like, if I go back to my Pinterest that we were looking at before, This idea, like here, I'm sort of doing this with the overlapping blocks already a little bit. Like here, I love how this, like here it's our builders and you have that, but you have the big imagery and it really does flow into this next section because this white connecting white space. Like, do I put a big image thing here? Because what I don't want to do is bring in a big image that's going to be somewhere here. I don't want like a big image there. If I was going to have a big image now, it would be here and underneath the rest, but I don't necessarily want to do that too. I'm just a little worried here about how things are going to start fitting together necessarily with all of this, because I don't want it just, now that I have this offset space, I don't want to now have another offset like that because it's going to start looking weird. So what if instead I took this, and let's go all the way out now to the edge, bring in like a nice big picture. Let's go see my images. So this one's going to be about the brewery, so I want something that looks, I wish I had better brewery pictures. It's amazing. I mean, that looks more like a tap room. I don't want just kegs. Okay, well, I'm just going to grab this one for now. It's not a terrible picture. It's a little overwhelming. Let's turn my grid back on. Say that came out to like here. Let's come back up to this. Bring you down. Left align, make sure all the text is left align. The beer, the brewery, our brewery. Okay. Let's do like free tours every Saturday and Sunday. And this could be like find out more. Make this a little longer, just the text in it is longer. It doesn't look so good though. I'm gonna leave it like that, and that'll get sorted out when we do the rest. So this can move down. I think for this one, again, this is the advantage of using lorem ipsum. Why I would say not to normally use lorem ipsum. I'm gonna grab some different text actually. Is because you can do this and I can like, oh, I have a whole bunch of other text now that's like super easy just to plug in and do the length that I want. And then the client comes and they give you something that's half as long or twice as long and you're swearing because it doesn't really fit with the layout that you've created. So unless you're doing a personal project where you're just worrying about like a fake site like this one, I'd suggest not going in with the whole lorem ipsum thing. Cool. I'm wondering no, I think I'm going to stick with that. And then I'm going to take this pattern that I've created here. And I'm going to give it down here again now, but we're going to switch the sides. Yeah, let's switch the sides up. So this one's going to come all the way out. And now my image can go pop right there. Now if I do that, all of this just needs to move over. Boom. This one I think I'm going to change a little bit what it looks like. Our mission, I'm actually wondering now if I'm changing this, like the sides they're on. I'm going to move it down just a little bit. Our mission. This one would be or let's say tap room. Let's get an image in there. All right, so we have that in there, tap room. I think for this one, I'm going to change the fill to white, actually. I'm going to switch things up a little bit. Let's just see if this is going to look good or not. I want the same pattern sort of continuing through. And then the text on this one can be white. Tap room. This could have two different things. What's oh my goodness, what's on tap? And the second button here could be opening hours. Now if I'm going to do that, they're going to be a little bit smaller. I don't want to change the font size. And this is where like maybe this one could be a something like that. And I'm not done. This needs the same shadow that this one has, which was, I think here was 8, and my shadow was 32. What if I moved you on, on top? I have to get everything here on top. If I do that, I definitely want to shrink this down. Gives me a bit more room to play with too. I don't like this button at all, but anyway. And then this one I would turn off the shadow because it's underneath. So you're still getting like this same, I've almost switched it. Now this one has the text in it instead of that one, so it's on front. It has the shadow on it because it's in front of my image. It helps the flow, I think, a little bit more because you're going like up to down. That brings us into here, and then we're going here. We see the image and everything. So I think it flows pretty nice. On this one, I'm using the same colors. This is too dark. There we go. The same colors as here because we're on white. But I'm still bringing, like I kept that inner border thing just so it's still, I'm repeating the patterns that I'm seeing here when I'm coming down into here, even if I'm changing the colors or changing other things. I really don't like this border. That's not as bad, I guess. Cool, so we're going like that, flowing down into this, and then tap room, what's on top, opening hours. And I almost want to shrink this down a little bit. I can probably get away with that. A little bit like that. Cool. There we go. I'm happy with that. So then we scroll down to here, and then we need some sort of footer. Now, do we need a footer that's like a traditional footer, or can I literally just like local? I'm not gonna do that. Let's go and grab the thing. I made it all the way at the top here before. Whoops. Copy. Paste. Let's change the color to some like light brown, local brewery. Then here, whoops. Copy, right, 2018. Designed by Kevin Powell. Bang, whoops. This one can be nice and, is it the latest I have? Okay. And obviously like a million times smaller. It's a bit of a weird footer for what I'm doing here. Let's just go and grab this artboard because I don't need it to be so tall. I guess they should, well, like there could be like a contact and all that, but it's sort of just like a stamp at the bottom. Boom, you're at the bottom of the page. If this is a real site, I'd probably build this out a little bit more, but I think for now I'm going to leave that like that. What I will do here is bring in a bit of a navigation. So let's just do home. I'm going to change this into regular text. Let's go and do this thing. Not regular text. It gives me like one of these things I can do this with instead of a text box. Can I turn text boxes into a grid? I can. Home. We need 3 of them. Home, home, home. Stretch those out. And I think I can come on. Home, about, not about, our mission. Come on, this one. Our brewery. the brewery, I think I called it, right? The brewery. Let's just call it tours. Tours. And I do need another one. Tours, and what would then the last one be? Tours, and the last one was tap room. Tap room. Problem with that, the spacing is not equal because they're different lengths, but c'est la vie, right? Do that. If I do a text align, oh, it already is text align center. Something like that. And maybe if I just come and do like a little, I don't like how it does that and doesn't, if I just do a little bar across the top here. Where's my colors panel? It's driving me nuts, the colors thing. If I do that with like a little, probably smaller than that, just a little sort of extra detail. These I want a different color than the rest of it because it's not the same information. It's a little hard to see like that though, eh? It's a really low contrast. Unless I made it white. What if I made this one? But that one's, I don't want this one too low contrast because I want to make sure people can read it. I think I'll go with that though. This is like the lighter brown. This is this one, and then this text is this one here. I'll go with that. Your eye sort of naturally comes to the navigation first anyway, and then you go to this, and then you'll jump to that, or you've already clicked on one of these things. And there we have it. There is the layout. So let's go and check it out. So we have my local brewery. Then we get down into the beer. I forgot the beer. Oh, here, we'll put the beer. We don't need a home on our beer. This will get spaced. Whoops. This will get spaced out a little nicer. There we go. I'm just using the arrow keys to sort of punch that over and move it where I need it to be. Can I do that on all of them? Because that would be sweet if I could take this and just... No, it's going to move it all then. That's fine. I'll fix that with some space evenly or whatever when I'm doing the code. So I have that here, so we can go beer, we can click on the one we want. It will scroll down. So here, the only thing I'm not sold 100% on, like I like the look here. I think it works, but it's really dark. And then the rest of the site is super light. So I don't know if that's sort of a bit too high in contrast. But then here we have the beer. Again, lots of white space. We're focusing on this. We can come down, click, go through, cycle through the beers. Keep going. Right away, we can even see there's the mission. If we want to read more, we'd click on that, bring us to another page that doesn't exist. Our brewery, again, find out more information on the brewery itself. Keep going, tap room, find out what's on tap, the opening hours of this place, and then to local brewery, just a little stamp down here at the bottom. This could definitely be fleshed out a little bit more, but for the main focus of what I want to be doing with this, I'm pretty happy with it. I think this is looking pretty nice. I hope you like the design. Yeah, for the limited time that I gave myself to do this, I'm quite happy with it.
And that's it. I hope you like the design. I hope you're excited to see how I code this up. Of course, if you have any questions, any comments, anything whatsoever, please don't be shy. Leave a comment down below. If you have an idea for a future series like this, a lot of people have been asking about e-commerce stores in the comments, designing an e-commerce thing. So maybe I could look at that. But if there's something else you'd like to see, let me know. A big thank you to my patrons for helping support me and helping make all of these videos possible. So if you're curious about how you can support this channel, and also I have a bunch of perks for the people who are patrons, so you can go check out my Patreon. The link is down below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, I hope you learned something from this. And until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.